It's 33 minutes, well, just turned 34 minutes after 8 o'clock on Radio 2000 Talk. Now, he is well known to be articulate, he's sharp and to the point, specifically when it comes to issues pertaining to black people and black boys in specific. He is a psychologist by profession and describes himself as the Prince of Pan-Africanism. His name is Dr. Umar Johnson, and he's currently in the country to promote some of his teachings to the South African audience. He is our personality of the week, and he joins us now on the line. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, sister. Thanks for having me.
Now, Dr. Johnson, what brings you to South Africa?
This is my second annual South African National Speaking Tour. Last year we had the first. It was an idea that was conceived by brothers and sisters here in Tanzania who thought it would be interesting to expose my message of Pan-Africanism to the brothers and sisters here in South Africa.
And what is your message? Yes, you have said in a nutshell that it is Pan-Africanism, but can you break it down a bit more for us, two specifics?
Certainly, I would say that African people need to be politically re-educated about our reality. Second, our children have to be re-educated also because the current educational system does not prepare African children to dismantle the system of white supremacy, racism that we see around the world. And thirdly, we as African people have to begin to organize, to build and acquire our own wealth, and to build our own streams of revenue. The reason why South Africa is such a gold mine for the Chinese, the Indian, the Afrikaner, and the British is they all can access streams of revenue and banks in their native land, or they can come to South Africa and access capital at the banks in South Africa. But black South Africa is still largely redlined from being able to access capital. In other words, before 1994, you had social apartheid, and after 1994, you have economic apartheid. Before, they kept you from going places, and now they keep you from accessing wealth. Same thing, different reality.
So tell me a bit about yourself and where you were raised. And, I mean, you have an American accent. Tell us where you were born.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is my hometown.
And you've spent all your life there?
Pretty much.
And what is it, do you believe, about, your environment or your upbringing that has given birth to this level of consciousness and your choice of life purpose?
Well, for me, it was three factors. One, we had a mandatory Black History class when I was in grade school, elementary school in North Central Philadelphia, 4th and 5th grade. Ms. Green was my teacher, and she, I think, may have lit a spark in me towards Black consciousness. Second, in the 6th grade, my father took me to my first family reunion, and it was there that I realized or found out that I was related to the greatest Black leader in American history, the Honorable Frederick Douglass. And thirdly, I would say that my ancestors sent me here to do the work of Pan-African redemption. I don't think it's any accident. I don't even think I chose it. I think I was born for it. I have a very traditional educational background, very traditional upbringing. Nothing in my history would lead anyone to think that this would be my life path. So I think it was chosen before I got here.
And why your choice of psychology as a profession? I mean, what were you interested in originally? Because psychology wasn't your first option.
Generally, well, psychology was my first option. Generally, helping African people, primarily. Specifically helping African children. I love children, which is one of the reasons why we're currently in the process of raising money to build the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy School District, because I love children. I like to educate them. I like to see them happy. I like to see them successful. So children are my life. And so becoming a psychologist, I'm also an educator, a school principal. Okay, I'm able to actually help prepare the next generation of African children to be successful. But also, we as African people suffer from post-traumatic slavery disease, post-traumatic colonialism disease, post-traumatic apartheid disease. And so as a psychologist, my job is to also help African people recover their organic African consciousness, because we have lost it. So many of us see white people as our own ideal. We wake up every day trying to approximate the realities of white people, and that is such a shame given the fact that we have the greatest history in the universe.
Let's talk about those perhaps subtle, because most of the time, things of the mind, they're not things that you can see, but you see them expressed in attitudes and in behaviors. What are some of the things that really glare out at you as signs of that post-traumatic, apartheid, post-traumatic slavery mentality that you have seen? Let's talk about South Africa now specifically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And to be honest with you, I'm going to talk about South Africa specifically, but let me say it's no different wherever you go. So you take me. I'm the most requested black scholar on the planet. No scholar in the world gets requested to speak around the world as much as I do. So I've seen it all. I've seen North America, South America, Europe, all throughout Africa. I've seen it all. Wherever you go, there are 4 realities for African people. I don't care if it's New York. I don't care if it's Durban. I don't care if it's Joburg. I don't care if it's Texas, Birmingham, Manchester, Jamaica, St. Croix. It doesn't matter. And those 4 realities, number 1, there is always some non-African ethnic group dominating the economies in our ghettos and in our communities. I don't care where you go on the planet Earth, African people do not control the economy of their community. That's number 1. Number 2, no matter where you go, black people are worshiping their deity in the image of their enemy. I would say that 85% of the global Pan-African community still worship the image of a white Jesus. And if they do not worship the image of a white Jesus, they conceptualize their Islam in the image of an Arab Muslim. And so we still have religious colonialism. Number 3, African people are the only people in the world who are psychologically comfortable with having their entire reality governed and dictated by non-African people. In other words, we are comfortable having other people control our businesses. We are comfortable having other people exploit our resources. We are comfortable having other people educate our children, and we are comfortable having other people control our opportunities in life. You don't see that with Chinese. You don't see that with Arabs. You don't see that with East Indians. You don't see it with the Afrikaner. You don't see it with the British. No one except the African on the planet is comfortable having another race control their reality.
So how then, in the work that you're doing, are you working at, I guess, rewiring the mind and bringing all of these points to the fore and instilling a sense of, it has to go deeper than behavioral change because it's got to be something that you internalize and you believe. How do you renew the mind?
Well, number 1, we have to understand something. Whoever controls the mind of the child from birth until age 12 will pretty much control the beliefs and behaviors of that child for the rest of their life. That is to say, until African people globally, because everything is Pan-Africanist in principle and platform, until African people control the educational systems that educate their children, we will never be liberated. Because before you can have any other significant change, any other revolution must be preceded by the psychological revolution. And so until you fundamentally change the way that African people think, you will not be able to change anything else about African people. That's why I'm starting with the schools, even here in South Africa. And I've been here 5 times, even though this is my second speaking tour. I'm pretty familiar with South Africa. You look at the school system. It is not designed to prepare our children in the art of acquiring wealth. Our children aren't taught real estate in these schools. I'm talking grade schools. They're not taught about the stock market in these schools. They're not taught about neo-colonialism in these schools. They're not taught about opening your own business in these schools. They're simply taught the Eurocentric way of thinking and the Eurocentric way of life. In other words, they are taught to be loyal to the system that has oppressed their people, and they are taught that the best thing they can ever become in life is the white man's top puppet.
Now, obviously what you're talking about here speaks to the very basics of a curriculum, a different curriculum that will achieve a different outcome for the black child. Is there a process underway to put this curriculum together, or does it exist somewhere as a prototype?
Well, with me and the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey mission, I have curriculum. But that curriculum will not be implemented until I have the physical school, because you have to control implementation of curriculum. Curriculum is very important. speaking as a school principal, curriculum is very important, but it is not more important than the context in which it is implemented. In other words, you can take a great curriculum, put it in the school where the teachers don't care about the children, put it in the school where the parents are not involved, put it in the school that is ruled by neo-apartheid, and that curriculum will not make a single bit of difference in the lives of those children, because the environment has to be suitable for the introduction of that type of revolutionary method of teaching. So you have to make sure that the environment is right, or the curriculum means nothing. In other words, if I have to choose between a horrible curriculum and great teachers, or great teachers and a horrible curriculum, give me the great teachers, because great teachers in and of themselves will transform the horrible curriculum to make sure their children learn. Our biggest challenge is not the curriculum. Our biggest challenge is surrounding our children with people who genuinely care about their own best interests, which is why it bothers me in South Africa to see so many of our children going to these poor township schools where they're being taught by people who don't care, or their parents are paying for them to go to the British school, or the Afrikaner school, or the Chinese independent school, or the Indian independent school, where they're largely being taught to hate themselves.
Have you had a look at the progress and the developments that have been made in the South African schooling system, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure, respectfully, I'm not sure of your definition of progress, because I haven't seen much progress here in terms of education, like I haven't seen much progress in the UK or in the United States.
Let me give you just one example. For example, there are schools that have been built in Soweto, for example, that are perhaps more, career-oriented, more specialist type of schools. The things that you spoke about early on, about, maths and science not being the focus, entrepreneurship not being the focus, where kids are literally groomed to go and work for somebody else. But there really has been quite a move away from that direction to ensure that young people from a young age are actually entering, a world of independent thought from a really young age. And that is something that's perhaps, worth looking at, especially in the curriculum that you already have and that you are designing, specifically here in Soweto with the Minister of Education, not Minister of Education, but David Makura in the Gauteng area. But that's certainly something I think that can be looked at. But here's one point that I want to talk to you about. Your main focus is on the children. But then you also went and spoke about the fact that they need an environment that is conducive to that education and that learning, that teachers and the parents also need to be, I guess, in that same wavelength to be able to impart and cultivate that renewed mind and thinking. Are there efforts underway, or do you have programs that are existing that speak directly to teachers and educators and parents so that they themselves can create that environment for young people to be able to learn from and learn in?
Okay. First, I want to go back to your previous point. Unless the South African children are being taught how to take back power for black people in South Africa, the education is not progressive. I don't care how many careers they've been trained for. I don't care how many jobs they're being prepared for. Until the black children of South Africa are being taught how to take back political and economic power from the white people of this country who still control 95% of your resources, the school are not progressive. Now, as it relates to educating teachers, and of course, I do a lot of work educating teachers throughout the United States of America. Here's the thing. You can educate teachers all day long, but if that teacher does not come to the job with a healthy respect and love for the children that are in front of them, it doesn't matter what you teach them, the children will not learn. Why? Because the most important factor that is involved in the proper education of children is being committed to that child's learning. You have to believe that they can succeed, because children, spiritually and subconsciously, can pick up on the vibration of a teacher, especially African children who have the most intrinsic spiritual system known to mankind. Soon when you walk into the room, our babies can tell whether or not that person standing in front of them genuinely cares. And the only way a child is going to try their best The only way a child is going to do their best is if they believe the person responsible for teaching them absolutely cares, loves, and believes in their ability to achieve.
And one thing about what you're saying is that you cannot lie to children. You know, you don't even have to say a word.
You cannot lie to children.
I mean, you don't even have to say a word.
They know in 5 minutes. They know in 5 minutes.
The moment you walk in, I mean, look at an infant, for example. There's some infants that will not allow you to, to touch them or even to hold them if you're not completely right. So let's open up the lines. 089 110 2000. That's 089 110 2000. We're in conversation with our personality of the week today, Dr. Umar Johnson, focusing on Pan-Africanism and the role that he is currently playing in educating the African child and changing mindsets. Self-love, self-respect is what he is all about. 089 110 2000. It's 8:49.
Are you going to leave someone an orphan because they were driving too slow for your liking and you just had to overtake? No, you won't, because you care enough.
It's exactly 8:49 on Radio 2000 Talk. Now, Dr. Umar, how long are you going to be here for?
I'm going to be in the Republic of South Africa until the last day of this month, October the 31st. I will be leaving just for 3 nights. I've been invited to speak at a conference at the University of Jomo Kenyatta in Nairobi. So I'll be out of the country the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and then I'll come right on back to continue the tour.
And how do people get in touch with you if others want to attend some of the lectures and that you are going to be giving?
Yes, ma'am. 2 ways. One, they can email me for the schedule, and my email address is drumarjohnson@yahoo.com. That's DRUMARJOHNSON. Dr. Umar Johnson at yahoo.com. They can also add me on WhatsApp as a friend, and they can text me for the schedule, and I can text it to them right from my iPhone. And that number is +1 215 989 9858. Again, +1 215 989 9858. I'm scheduled to be in Khayelitsha on October the 10th, University of the Western Cape, October the 11th. I will be at the, is that the Mazala, how do you say the brother's name? I don't want to mispronounce it. The Mazala Nxumalo Center for the Study of South African Society. I will be there on Friday, October the 14th. I'll be in Durban at the Steve Biko campus of the Durban University of Technology on Saturday, October the 15th. There's a possibility that I will be speaking at the Moses Madiba Center on Saturday, October the 16th, and I'll be at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein on October the 21st, and there's more events to be scheduled. But again, folks can just text me. And I also have a Pretoria date coming up, but I don't have the details yet. But they can just text me or email me, and I can send them the schedule.
All right. So when you said you were coming to tour to South Africa, you were not joking. Literally ensured that every single day is literally taken up. We've got a couple of calls. Let's chat to
Sure.
Maputle, who's calling us from Kimberley. Good evening, Maputle.
Good evening, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you, Baba?
Fine, thanks. Good evening to the doctor there. This topic
Good evening.
is close to my heart.
Mm.
Very close to my heart. I concur wholeheartedly with what he's saying. I've written a book. It's titled "Reconnecting with the Universe," because I believe that the African problem is not necessarily physical; it's spiritual. So I agree with the method that he wants to employ, where we need to teach the kids and so on. But if you cannot fix our spirituality, nothing that we ever do will bear us any fruit. All I'm saying, the spirituality goes a long way. It's not religious. Spirituality is the ability for humanity to communicate with the forces that govern the universe. If we lose that connection, as it has been the case with the colonialism, slavery, and apartheid, we have lost that connection. So there's no way. So the only way is to reconnect to the universe.
Maputle, thank you so much. I would love to actually get a copy of your book. If you could just, give a call to our producer, Matapelo. I'd love to get my hands on that one. Dr. Umar, let's chat to Dimakatso, who's calling us from Cape Town. Dimakatso, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. I just tuned into the radio station and I heard you guys talking, and good evening to Dr. Dr. Umar. Sorry. I must just say that this topic, like the first caller said, is very close to heart. And one thing that worries me, of which I do not know how I'll be able to contribute or how I'm gonna get somebody to contribute, is the fact that he talked about economical freedom. And one of the things that makes us not to be free economically is because we do not have skills. And when I mean skills, we don't have technical skills. And we don't get that technical skill education from a young age, of which this is why we do not have economical freedom. So I look around, I work for a department, and people that have that are holding us economically, they are skillful. They are, they work technical. They are skillful technically. So I wonder how can one become part of the people who are being developed to develop skill. I just wonder. But this topic is very close to heart, because if we do not know how to do things technically, we will never be free, because we don't know. We are not taught how to be agriculturally free. We're not taught how to do a whole lot of things. We just taught to speak English. We just taught to to add up numbers, but we do not know how to fix things. We do not know how to plant. We do not know, and it takes so much time, and all those things. So I don't know how can one become part of that development that will develop our young people.
Dimakatso, I'm sorry to cut you off there, ma'am, but we really have heard your points. Unfortunately, time is not on our side. Dr. Umar,
yes.
Two questions.
Yes, I agree.
Two questions and two comments. But let me do this. Can I ask you to join us again next week? Will you be able to?
Sure.
I mean,
yes,
our lines,
ma'am. In fact, yes, we can. Take my number so you can communicate with me directly, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. We've got your number. We've got your number. So
okay.
what we'll do is we'll invite you back next week. We've got so many calls, and also Maputle and Dimakatso. So we're going to take your comments and your questions, and we're just going to put them on hold so that when Dr. Omar joins us again next week, we can pick up, where we left off today. Dr. Omar, from myself,
Sure.
Tami, it's been absolutely awesome chatting with you. I wish you all the best between now and next week.
Thank you, Queen. And send me a text message so I have your number.
All right, I'll certainly do that. Have a great evening.
You too.
All
God
right.
bless.
God bless you. That's Dr. Omar Johnson there, a Pan-Africanist and educator, psychologist. It's 8:57 on Radio 2000 Talk. Join us again next week. He will be our personality of the week once again. And all these calls that have been trying to come through will give you an opportunity. From myself and the team here at Talk on 2000, it's been really fabulous. And thank you for your participation and your contribution. Really makes all of this just worthwhile. And yes, we've heard you. We've heard you. Over to the Rabbi. From us, it's good night.